Okay, let's begin by creating our first entity. So I'll close everything. As you can see, I committed the code, so the source controller does not have any number here. Okay, so yeah, it is my commit, db connection and vars. Anyway, so to create a new entity, I will create a module first, then the entity. But something I want to show you that Nest CLI has a generator, and if we type nestj for generate, then dash dash help, it will give us all the options that it allows us to do. So it has a lot of options we can use. Some of them I never actually used, like the Angular app or the sub app or the even the library. But other things I think we might, I think we will go on a lot of them. Anyway, so you see module is mo, the shortcut. You can type module. So nest generate module. Now it will ask me the name. I think in the case of the module, when you type just, so I want a user module. This is the first entity we will create. Okay, I will create a module for it. It will create a folder for me called, I need to type refresh, and type user inside the source. Now, if I create any controller or service using the CLI, if the name of it start with a user, it will be inserted inside the user module, and inside it will insert it inside this folder users, and it will be provided in the providers array if it's an service, or if it's an controller, it will be added to the controller array here. And the thing is, using the CLI, I think it's a better idea than writing this for yourself, because the CLI, after it's created the user module, it already added it here. So as you can see, we have the user module here. So this is good. Okay. So the first thing I will create, and I think the generator does not have does not create an entity for you, but I think it will create a class and you can convert it. So this convert it to an entity. Let's try class, for instance. I think that's why the option class is there. So I call it users. What does this will give us? Oh. No, forget about it. So I will just delete the test file. Actually, I'm just curious, what does they... No, I don't think it's worth it. Maybe there is other options you pass to it, but I'll just do it manually. So user dot entity dot yes. Okay. Now we will start doing some entity definition. So the first thing, I will import some things from type ORM. The first thing I will import is the entity, then a column, then a primary generated column. So I will hide also the sidebar so I can have space. So I will export class called user entity. So I will just type a little bit of it in front of you, and we'll try to explain it. I will add primary generated column. I will invoke it. ID, it's a number. So I'll just hit enter S, Control S to save. Why does it complain about the ID? Yeah, forget about it. Something with my configuration, but I don't think it will complain in your IDE or text editor. So what does and yeah, then so I defined an ID, a property called ID inside the class, and before the class itself I will add the entity. So I will invoke it. So actually, what is this? This is called a decorator. It's a feature in TypeScript. It's a function. This is actually just a function. Sorry, a function that will take the block after it as an argument to it. So this function takes this class and adds to it some properties. I'm not sure why this is the case, but it looks good, and I think it's a better approach than just extending another class. So you can just, for example, chain multiple decorators that will define the properties inside the class, and you can put these decorators in multiple places, multiple places. I think it's a good approach. Yeah. But yeah, at the end, they are just functions that will return something to you. I'm not sure about why my Visual Studio complains. That's annoying. Set the experimental next option in your TS config. I will try to fix it now. Set the experimental decorator option in your TS config or JS config, or remove to remove this one. Okay, so I have JS config. TS config, sorry. It is true. What does they want to me? What does they? Yeah, it's weird. I just clicked Ctrl S and the errors removed. I think this decorators will be added into JavaScript eventually. Yeah, I think I read this one time because they are really useful. So entities take this class, add some properties to it. Okay, which makes Nest understand that this is an entity class. This represents a table in the database. Another thing is this primary generated column. So I said I would be Postgres. The ID will be number, will be from 1 to whatever, and it will be incremented one by one, and it will be the primary key. So this is how you do it. This decorator primary generated column means this property ID is the primary key. It's unique, and yeah, primary key is unique, but and it will be incremented one by one for each record. Auto increment it one by one. Okay, so this is out of the way. But if you are using Mongo, I think what you will need to do is I will just show you. I will put it inside the comments above. From the same thing, from type rm, you will include the following. You will import the following. You will import the entity and the column, of course, but new things, you will import the object ID and the object ID column. I think you notice what the object ID will be. So inside your class, you will have something like this. Add object ID column. So add object ID column. This you will invoke it, and your ID will be the type for it. It will be like this. I will just comment everything and this one. So yeah, this is how you do it in MongoDB. This is how you tell Nest.js this is a string ID will be generated by the database. Yeah. So let's continue from the user. If I have anything new to add to it in the future, I will add. But right now it will be really simple. I will just show the basic abilities for type ORM. But trust me, it can go really complex, and it has a lot of features. So I will define a column now. it will be the name of the user. So name, type for it is string. Okay, and inside the column decorator, I will pass an object. The first property is the length. So we have also auto completion here, which is nice. So the length is 50, and I will make the name unique. So unique equal true. That's it. This column now it's unique. And it's varchar the length 50. The other one is like the column. Not the column. It's a column. Another column is about, which of type string. So about. 1 second. So about is. Why does it complain? Okay. About is of type. I will just. You can add like this. It's text. This will make it a type text in Postgres. And another option is to pass out an object. So the type is, I think here we should have also autocomplete. Yes, the type is text. So I think you saw that this decorator acts like a function, but the way the arguments are can be, you can pass string or an object to it. So yeah, well, I'm not sure if this is a good proof, but yeah. And another thing is if it's nullable or not. So nullable true. By default, it's false. So everything you define as a column will be not null. No, I went the about the user, it will be none. So the user have the option to not describe him or herself. I just shut down the server. Okay, I'll just save. And another thing, I will add another column. It's the email string. So type, sorry, no, the length is 50. Unique true, I think, yeah, unique true. So I think TypeScript is smart enough to understand that, okay, this is a varchar 50, this one is a text type. Yeah, it's smart enough to know all of that. Which I keep imagining the code that does that, and yeah, and I'm just imagining the code that makes me impressed. Okay, so the final column at the moment is enum, which is the role of the user. So I'll define it role from type roles. No, roles like this. I need to define this type here before the class. So enum roles. The first role is just a user, will be equal to a user. First one is an admin, will be equal to an admin. Yes, like this. So we still need to pass some properties to this object. So enum, what is the enum this column will be based on is the roles enum. What is the default value? Is the roles dot user. A cool thing that each that exists in type.rm, each column decorator, you can pass to it an object. This object has a default property. Default property can be, I think, if you add anything here, it should accept it. But yeah, if you can't put a type number and put the default value string. I think this will cause an error. But yeah, I think you got the idea. You can put here a function that do something, and the return value will come. So you can make things really dynamic. From this by passing a function, for example, a callback function here. Yeah, but anyway, this is how the user right now will be. I'm not sure if I will make it bigger or not. but I will create in another videos the likes entity, the comments, the posts, and I think yeah, it's as simple as that. And one day the image, not one day, and eventually the images entity, which will I do the file upload with, and things like this. I will just focus on the relations and how to get the data, join the data and within the request, so I can see the user and his or her post in the same request. Yeah, I will do some interesting things, but not at the moment. So yeah, I think another. Let's just continue creating a structure for the user entity. So how to interact with it? We need a controller that will map a set of routes to a user service that will contact to the entity which represent the table via the repository users or users repository. Okay, so what we'll need to do right now is two more files. The first one is the controller nest generate co for controller. But just one note before I generate it. Right now, if you go to the user module and in the imports, you added an array. The first and the second array will be the time or module and for feature. Okay, this will, you pass it an array, what the user entity. Okay, so now since this module, the user module, is imported in the app module, if you run the server now, it will generate the tables in the database. This is it. This is how you create an entity which represents a table, and Nest will create the table for you. This is it. Just you define this entity, import it as a feature here using the type. This is static function, the for feature, and add it as import. This will return a module which represent the entity. I hope this is clear. But I will just continue. I will create the service and the controller and the users repository, which I think will give us a clue how the other entities will look like. Yeah, I will just continue. I'll try to make things fast. So what is the name of the controller? User controller. So now if I hit refresh, you can see by default the CLI is smart enough to understand that this controller should be exist inside the user folder. And if I will close the user module and open it, you'll see something cool. Yeah, it also added the controllers array with the user controller. So it did some good stuff for us. Another thing, when it's generated the controller, it prefixed with the name of the controller. So user localhost 3030/users will reach us here, will bring us here. Okay, another thing is the nestjs service. I'm not sure about the shortcut for service, but I will type it. This, I think also I will just type user, and will also it will also add it inside the user folder, and also it says here, and also it updated the user module. So the user module should have the user module should have another another array providers user service. So the user service, it should contact with the user repository, which contacts the database. Okay, so that I will constructor so at inject repository. I will pass to it the user entity and this is a private property, and you can add read only. I'm not sure why someone will override this value, but yeah. User repo will type of repository. Sorry, no. Repository accepts a generic type of, I will add user entity. So this is how most of the services constructor will look like. And for example, you will have a find. I won't leave it, but for example, you'll have a function called find all, will be return this dot user repo, and here we have all the functions we can use to manipulate or find the data we want. So for example, find, and this is actually returns a promise. So a promise, it accepts also generic type of user entity, and of course an array. So yeah, and in the controller we need also to the controller, let's inject the service. So private read only user service, and there, for example, you can add a get. And of course, this I think probably this will throw an error, since the find all will return a promise object, and trying to serialize a promise object, I think this might throw an error. So I want to return the value of the promise, the resolved value of the promise. So I will add await. I will make it an async function. Will return. It will await the value, then return it. But the return value will be promise user entity, of course an array. But I think you noticed, if the return type is a promise, how does this get resolved to the array of the users? I think Nest.js behind the scenes see that this is a promise. It will subscribe. It will subscribe to the promise, and after the value get resolved, it will serialize the value. I think that's what Nest.js doing behind the scene. Okay. So now we created the entity, the user entity. We added it as a for feature using the for feature static method from the type or module, and the user module as whole, we included it inside the app module. I think that's it. Now if I run the server and npm run start, we should see a user. Oh no, sorry, just before, by default, just before I run everything, just before that, in the entity, by default, Nest type or m will add entity underscore user to the name of the entities, but I don't like this behavior. So here you can yes, add an object inside the entity decorator name. I will make it plural, so users. This is how I like to do the database columns. Okay, now if I run start diff. Actually, there is here a lot of cool options that I think reading about them would be good. Like an example for the schema. When you have a big database, it's really good to divide them by schema, because looking at 100, 200 data column tables without dividing them by schemas are a little bit confusing. At least for me, I'm not that good in databases. So okay, let's see what. Hopefully no errors. I hope there is an error. Looks like this entity is not registered in the current default connection. Yes, I knew I forgot something. I think I said it in the previous video. Inside the app module, there is the entities array and it's empty. We should tell Nest.js we have an entity, which this is the name. And here you can find its definitions or its actual module and definitions, whatever, and controllers and all of these things. So now just clear it. Now everything should be okay, I hope. I think this video is getting long, very long. So okay, this everything is okay. As you can see, it mapped it. It's also maps. It shows us that it maps the user controller as well, the routes inside of it. So if we go to the db-eval, we can see inside the Nest.js database schemas, public tables, the users. So I will double click on it. It will show us the properties and the ER diagram at the end. Well, this will be good to look at. So here we have the ID. It's a primary key. It's auto incremented. We can see, but this is the default value. It's using a sequence which type ORM created. This is how you can create custom sequences in Postgres to increment the default values or to change them. So this is the name. It's a varchar. The length is 50, and it's also not null. But here's the about. The about is type text. Okay. Not null. It's not checked, which is correct. This is how we want it. The email is also varchar 50, and the role is enum, and the default is user. And if you go to the indexes, you think you see three: one to the primary key, one to the name, and one to the user, to the email. Sorry. So I think this is good. At least, yeah, this is good. Yeah, I think next video I will maybe start with the posts. So each user have many posts, and each post has many comments, and each post also has many likes. I will try also to find create a many to many relation to show you how we can create this. I can come up with anything I want. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.